Foundation destroyed democracy in America. How will you answer it? Fucking Nazis.
Nice.
We are standing in front of the Heritage Foundation, and we are greeting them as they leave their jobs at the Nazi headquarters of America. Imagine working at the Heritage Foundation. Couldn't be me. One day your grandchildren are going to ask you, what were you doing when the Heritage... So I'm out here at Columbus Circle, Union Station, where we've been, and I think it's important to let you guys know what's going on. What's going on is the guards never out here at Columbus Circle anymore. When we very first got here, they were here day 1. Day 2, day 3, day 4, they weren't here. Day 5, they came back. Then day 8, they brought their MRAPs back out. We played General Milley's speech on repeat for a couple days. They stopped coming. But more important than any of that, let me tell you guys what has happened along the way. So we pass out political theater, call this phone number. We have a phone number. Let me show it to you real quick. The GI rights hotline right here. We tell guard members to call this. If you have a question about the order that you've been given or the orders you're following, this hotline will answer your questions. And we pass that out on a little piece of paper. And we also put together some goodie bags for them, some chips and drinks and stuff like that. Well, the guards started disseminating through the ranks that they're not allowed to take anything from us anymore. And that is because we were notifying them of their rights. We were letting them know what their rights were as service members. So they were informed they can't take anything from us. So then we switched our techniques to just having conversations with them. Me and all the veterans, we would just engage them in conversation. They were then informed by their chain of command that they are no longer allowed to have any conversation with us and to just direct us to their PAO. So I want you to understand the progression that's happened here. Number 1, there used to be guard all over Columbus Circle, which is right outside Union Station, because technically Union Station and Columbus Circle are legally 2 different things. And there's no longer a guard on Columbus Circle. They never come out, mostly because they don't want them to interact with us. They do patrol inside Columbus, or inside.
Because that's not a woman. My point is, that is a girl. Stop calling that thumbnail a woman. That is a girl. Why are they calling it a fucking woman? Trump drew that girl, that wonderful thinking. That's why I posted it. Because I want people to look at it. I want you to look at it. I want it in your fucking face that is a fucking girl. So why are you supporting a pedoPOTUS? That's my question to Americans. Look at the fucking picture. That's not a woman. That's known as a gamine. A gamine is an ideogram to enigma. He uses enigma. He thinks he's smart. He's not. He's a dumb fuck. Right? He's a dumb fuck. He thinks he's smart, and he uses the pedo anagram for young, playful, girl. Gamine. Jessica. Right? That's why enigma is used in the letter. This is a picture of a fucking girl, a gamine, right? I hope every day is a wonderful secret. Oh, look. Oh. And what's even more disgusting was his daughter was a gamine at that time. What was he fucking doing to his daughter? Why doesn't his daughter ever fucking show up and support her father? Ask yourself that. Was she a victim? Was she a fucking victim? I think she was. She's like, wants nothing to do with fucking her father. Have you noticed? Fucking gone. Eric is off making his billions off his fucking, pedo father. That's why I have it big, Jessica. That's why. That is not a fucking woman. Why does the media keep saying he drew a picture of a fucking woman? That's a picture of a girl. He's a fucking pedo, and defend it. Show me one fucking woman that has tits like that. Ain't got MAGA? Where are the women that have tits like that? Dude. dead, Jacob. You are a pedo lover. Red free my ass, dude. You support a fucking pedo. You support someone who supports fucking raping girls. That's what you are, Jacob. That's what you are. A fucking pedo. Pedo lover, Jacob. Not only that, you're like a Nazi pedo lover. Listen to this guy. This is a real American.
Station, but when we try to talk to them, they're not allowed to talk to us. We go downtown, there's a significantly less number of guards downtown. Sometimes I don't see them, sometimes I do, but if I stop and try to engage them, they can't talk to me. If I try to handle stuff, they don't take it. Also, they've taken their ammunition out of their weapons. When they first came out armed, they had magazines in their weapons, in their M4s and their M9s. Now they don't. So I just want to keep people informed of what's happening on the ground here. The inundation by veterans and by community members talking to these guard members saying you have rights, know your rights, remember your oath, has been effective, and their leadership and chain of command has taken steps in response to it. So stay engaged, community, not just with your National Guard, no matter where you are in the country, but also stay engaged, stay on these ICE and federal agents' asses, report where they are, catalog what they look like, and communicate with each other where they are. Report, catalog,
This guy walks around with a Nazi.
We are standing out.
Go on a ride with me through DC.
We are standing outside of the Heritage Foundation.
I love this guy.
I want you to think about the term heritage.
Heritage.
It comes
Nazi
from
term.
heritage, not hate, which is a term created by the United Daughters of the Confederacy.
Yes.
Justify the
Right,
resurrection of the Confederate
racist.
flag and Confederate statues and the lost cause of mythology.
Yep.
And when they rewrote textbooks, they didn't call it the Civil War. They called it the War of Northern Aggression. It was
Northern
heritage.
aggression.
Heritage is a white supremacy terminology that dates all the way back to Manifest Destiny. As we
Manifest Destiny Heritage Foundation. The fucking Nazis, right, funded this entire takeover. Everything that's been going on has been a Nazi fucking takeover. And they have duped Americans, good Americans, into thinking that they're for them. They're not. These motherfuckers are Nazis.
If you don't understand the rules of power, you will certainly lose to someone who does.
Be there in 5 minutes. I'm driving now. Nearly there. Love that guy. I get lost him now.
A Japanese knife for 20 bucks? Holy shit, this deal is insane. But they literally have too many knives and need them gone fast.
So OpenAI put out this paper just a few days ago that might give us a glimpse into why models hallucinate. Why LMs sometimes just make stuff up. We've all had this happen to us. We ask their question, it gives us an answer, and it's just wrong and strong. You know that the answer is incorrect, but it just insists that it's right. This has been used a lot as a criticism against large language models, but this paper reveals why it happens, what the solution is, and why the model's behavior isn't wrong. In fact, as you see, you and I have most likely done the exact same thing. Now, really fast, you might think back to your either high school days or university days, and taking various multiple choice exams. One very common test-taking strategy that was advised for students to use is, number one, is the process of elimination. So if you have 5 answers, if you can eliminate 2 of them as highly unlikely to be true, eliminating certain answers leaves you with other viable answers that you can just guess from. So let's say you have 3 viable choices. All of a sudden, if you were to guess what the answer is, you went from 1 in 5 to 1 in 3, a much higher chance of accidentally getting it right. Most exams don't have a penalty for choosing the wrong answer. Or to put it a different way, there's no difference between leaving a question blank, having no answer to it, and getting the wrong answer. There's no penalty for having an attempt to answer the question but failing. Either way, you get a 0 for that question. So it's in the student's best interest to guess on the questions they don't know. Either randomly fill one out, or if you can eliminate a few possibilities and guess from the remaining ones, that's a viable strategy.
Just get to the point. How did they fucking solve it?
Evaluation procedures. So it's not their fault, it's our fault, it's the human's fault. Here's the big statement here. If incorrect statements cannot be distinguished from facts, then hallucinations in pre-trained language models will arise through natural statistical pressures. We'll unpack what that means in just a second. But the big point is that language models are optimized to be good test takers, and guessing when uncertain improves test performance, just like a student facing a hard exam question. Have you ever had this feeling sometimes when somebody talks about something, somebody explains something, that once they say it, it seems kind of obvious in retrospect, but also you realize that is a very powerful statement that's going to change how certain things function, how people behave? This to me feels just like that. Because yeah, while everyone is complaining about these AIs hallucinating, no one's changing their approach into how they train the AI. There's no incentive for it to say, I don't know. And there have been certain papers that were published that seem to show that these models have a certainty of sorts, or a probability, or some idea about how correct they are. So if you take a model and you ask it a question and you sample 100 different outputs for simple questions where it's certain of the answer, most of those outputs will be the same. If you ask it what 2 + 2 is, the answer is going to be 4. Most of the time, hopefully all of the time. But, you know, it's not going to throw a bunch of different answers out each time. It's going to say 4, 4, 4 every time you ask it. Now, if you ask it something that's a lot more complicated, where it's unsure, well, kind of the distribution of answers is going to be a lot different. It's going to throw a lot of different things out there. It's going to throw a lot of guesses out there. That kind of makes sense. Imagine cloning yourself 100 times and taking this exam 100 times. On the questions where you know the answer and you're certain of it, you're just going to mark that answer, right? You're going to mark A. And each one of your 99 clones will mark A. But then you get to the hard question where you can, let's say you can eliminate 2 of the answers, 3 are left. Well, the 100 different clones will all mark a different answer. They're going to guess. Some will mark A, some will mark B, some will mark D. So how varied your answers will be will show how confident you are in your answer. If all of your clones answer A, that means you're pretty certain it's A. If all your clones seemingly choose an answer at random, then you're not very sure about that answer. It's important to understand that we see the same thing with these large language models. There is some internal sense of confidence in the answers. By the way, if you want to know more about the thing I just talked about, I do have a video. I'll try to link it in here. It's the method called Intuitor, although there's a few different papers around the same thing. And in them, LLMs are being trained on self-certainty, right? So they employ reinforcement learning from internal feedback, using the model's own confidence as a reward signal. I was very confused the first time I read the paper because I'm like, what is confidence in a large language model? What is a high self-confidence in its answer? What is low self-confidence? But it's literally that. It's, you know, if you ask it 100 times or 100 different instances of the LLM, if you sample 100 different answers, how varied are those answers? So the OpenAI paper introduces this scenario. They ask, what is Adam Tauman Kalai's birthday? So apparently he's one of the OpenAI researchers. If you know, just respond with, the date and month. On 3 separate attempts, the state-of-the-art open source language model guessed incorrectly 3 times, even though a response was requested only if known. So that's important to understand. Even if we say, just do this if you know, it still outputs incorrect answers. This kind of showing it doesn't know, right? So if 3 times it guesses 3 different things, you know it's guessing. And here they start with errors caused by pre-training. And I think in this sentence, in this paragraph, they explain in such a good way a lot of the things that people don't understand about how LLMs function. So during pre-training, a base model learns the distribution of language in a large text corpus, right? So it reads the internet and all the textbooks and everything it can get its hands on, and it learns kind of what words follow other words, so it can kind of guess at how to complete a sentence or how to complete a paragraph or a book. But even with error-free training data, there would still be errors. There would still be models that generate errors. Now, there's simple ways to create models that never generate errors. One is having it always say, I don't know, IDK. I don't know, who knows? Every single time to whatever you ask, it will never be wrong. Or one that simply memorizes and reproduces an error-free corpus. So the first example is something that is completely useless. And two is something that's more like a calculator or a computer. It's very deterministic. You know exactly what it's going to output. And so a lot of people are comparing large language models to that. They're like, well, why can't it always be right? That's not the point of it. It's a completely new approach, different technology. We're still trying to figure it out. But they're asking here, consider a question of the form, is this a valid language model output?
Huh? Is that okay? Better?
No, I can't.
Okay, you need to put lotion on it. Okay. Mama has that lotion so your finger, it will stretch.
And the generating valid outputs is in some sense harder than answering these yes or no questions, right? So it's difficult to produce, let's say, a story, but it's easy for a person to be like, does the story make sense? Yes or no? It's easier for us to gauge that, and also for these models as well. And so here they propose a binary, meaning it's one way or another. Is it a valid binary classification problem? So each answer by these large language models is labeled as valid or not valid, plus or minus. So a good model will get everything correctly. All these pluses are correct. A poor model is one that maybe gets a lot of them correct, but still gets some incorrect. So the is it valid sort of a benchmark? It's a model that learns to identify right versus wrong. So if it correctly distinguishes the good answers from the bad answers, that's a good model. One that fails to perfectly categorize them is a poor model. Or here with just random stuff, that's a no pattern, right? So there's just no sort of a visible pattern going on. All right, but here...
If you're thinking about getting a contour pillow, you can hear this first. So I almost made the dumbest mistake of my life. I got this contour pillow called Dorilla Ergo, but honestly, I was ready to return it. I didn't expect it to actually help me with neck.
Here's the big point. Why do these hallucinations survive post-training? So the second stage of making these models is post-training. It refines that base model, often with the goal of reducing hallucinations. Right? So we ask it questions, having it solve certain problems. When it does it correctly, we say, good job. When it does it incorrectly, we say, that's incorrect. And over time, we shape it to be better at solving those problems. And while that does help, it doesn't eliminate those wrong and strong answers that these models produce. They provide this analogy of students guessing